So we already talked about what materials you need to make a fursuit and the cost of those materials. If you haven't seen that video, the link is in the description. Now before we actually start making our fursuit head, we have to have a reference. And I know that should be common knowledge, but I'm not just talking about figuring out the character design and the colors, but you need to make a reference of your fursuit head so you know exactly what you want it to look like. That means, is the mouth going to be open or closed? What is going to be like the ears? Are they going to be turned frontwards or backwards or to the side? What style are you going for? And the most important thing to figure out is the facial expression. What facial expression do you want for your fursuit? I know a lot of people struggle with making facial expressions on fursuits, and that's why a reference is so important. Pretty much every part of your fursuit head revolves around the facial expression. It's going to determine the shape of the eyes, it's going to determine the eyebrows and what those look like. It's going to determine, the position of your ears. It's going to determine the shape of your muzzle and the shape of your cheeks and overall the shape of the head. So before you start making your head base, it is so important to know what expression you're going for, because in order to achieve that expression, you're going to have to shape everything about the base a certain way. So before you start making a fursuit head, I suggest making sketches of what you want the head to look like. And again, try to make the sketch as close as possible to what you want the head to look like, so that when you're building your head, you can use those sketches as reference so you can make the head as close to those sketches as possible. If you're trying to go for an angry expression or a sassy expression, but your reference just has a blank expression or a very neutral expression, then it's going to be very difficult for you to make that expression without a reference of what you're trying to make. From what I've seen, a lot of people that struggle to make good facial expressions don't draw out a reference beforehand, so they're just trying to make the fursuit head and they don't have anything to reference from, and they're just trying to see what happens. If you start making a fursuit head without knowing exactly what you're trying to make, it usually really shows. You end up with a very awkward or blank facial expression, and a lot of the times people don't even know what species they're trying to make. They just try to make something and it just looks like a very weird looking dog most of the time. So if you really want to make a good fursuit, I suggest knowing exactly what you're trying to make before you actually make it. I think that's something that more experienced makers can get away with, because they already know what they're doing and can kind of experiment with stuff. But if you're just starting out, then I really don't suggest that you do that. Having a reference really makes fursuit building a whole lot easier, because you know exactly what you're trying to achieve, and in every step of making your fursuit, you know what shape of the muzzle you're going for, what shape your cheek should be, what shape your eyes should be. So it really comes together nicely in the end. And your fursuit head may not end up exactly the way that you drew it out in the reference, but it's there as a guide and it's a good starting point. For the following tutorials, I am actually going to start making a fursuit head for you guys. I've chosen this Hyena design, and I am going to be using this as a reference as well as the head base that I had made for Jack Frost, because I do want the Hyena to have a similar style to what he has. And as you can see from my reference, I'm going for a smile with asymmetry, so it's going to be a little larger on one side than the other, just for like a bit of a smirk. It's a bit subtle, but it really adds a bit of personality. I also had asked you guys if you want to see me make the Hyena with a static jaw or a moving jaw, and it was really 50-50. And so the Hyena I'm going to make with the static jaw, but I am going to try to make another head base at the same time with a moving jaw, just so you guys can see what that one looks like. And in the next video, we will be starting on those fursuit heads. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.